How's it going, YouTube family? It's Doomber and the Dingo, and I thought I would change up my don't know what you call it, my format, I guess, a little bit. I have been shooting rather quick videos, trying to upload an amount of content rather than, I suppose, quality content. And I want to slow down and try to put more information into my videos because it's important to be educated in the field of finding mushrooms because you can pick the wrong one and poison yourself irreversibly, from what I understand. Like there's no anti-venom for it. There's no go to the doctor and get some shot that'll reverse the effects. Like you're at the mercy of it now, and you either ride it out and possibly expire at the end of it or not. But yeah, I don't believe there's any cures for it. That being said, what I'm going to be using as my teaching guide and my reference to you is the National Audubon Society Field Guide to North American Mushrooms. This is what I've been using for, let's see, since I think I bought it in 2004, and it's 2022 now. So what, 18 years? Yeah. 2004 February. That's this 18th printing. This is just a little flip through. That's the pictures and stuff like that. But the introduction is kind of important. Then I'll try to go over stuff that's in the introduction to get you familiar with just basically fungus and finding them and whatnot. And speaking of, there's some right in front of me. I didn't show you guys, but there's a little orange mushroom there hiding under that leaf. And we will address those here in just a few minutes after I read to you a little bit. Let you look at the dingo a little bit while I read. It says, mushrooms are among the most mysterious life forms. The ancient Greeks believed they came from Zeus's lightning because they appeared after rains and reproduced and grew inexplicably. Hashtag there's an argument from ignorance. I don't know, therefore Zeus's lightning. But on with the introduction. In the Middle Ages, the circular patterns formed by some of the mushrooms were dubbed fairy rings and were thought to be the work of little people who supposedly danced around them at midnight performing magic rites. In the New World, some hallucinogenic mushrooms have been called the food of the gods and invested with supernatural powers. Mushrooms are mysterious, but not as they were once thought to be. They appear suddenly and often in places where they have never been seen before. They have, in fact, been out of sight, growing underground or beneath bark, and much remains to be learned about fungi. Some species contain dangerous toxins, many of which are not yet fully understood. Some mushrooms are, of course, edible. Since Roman times, fungi have been famous as gourmet fare. Truffles, boletes, chanterelles, and morels, all of which grew in North America, often fetch fantastic prices. And with good reason. After tasting wild fungi, most people find that the common cultivated mushroom bland and uninteresting. Mushrooms also play a vital role in the world's ecosystem. Many land plants could not thrive in their absence, since some establish symbiotic relationship with fungi, exchanging essential nutrients. And were it not for mushrooms, which hasten decomposition, many dead plants and fallen trees would take far longer to decay. This book is designed for anyone who wants to identify the common mushrooms of North America. The combination of vivid color photographs and non-technical descriptions should make it relatively easy to do so. Geographical scope. This covers North America, north of Mexico. The ranges given in the descriptions indicate where the species have been found. They may occur elsewhere as well. Too little is known about the distribution of most North American mushrooms to be more specific. What is a mushroom? Although mushrooms are usually considered members of the plant kingdom, they differ from most plants, and they lack chlorophyll and must rely on organic material for nutrition. They do this in 3 ways: as saprophytes, as parasites, and as mycorrhizae. Mycorrhizae. Saprophytes live on dead organic matter, including dead wood, the dead tissue of living trees, dung, leaf matter, conifer litter, parasites, conifer litter. Parasites attack living plants or animals. Mycorrhizal mushrooms have a symbiotic relationship with plants, usually either trees or shrubs. The underground vegetative part of the fungus, the mycelium, extracts nutrients from the substrate. The mycelium of the mycorrhizal mushroom sheathes the root ends of the flowering plant, expanding the plant's root system. The mushroom receives necessary carbohydrates from the tree. Sorry about this, guys. So that concludes what is the mushroom. Hopefully I read that all right. I kind of drifted off while I was reading it. And this says parts of the mushroom, or parts of a mushroom. And then, okay, that's where like illustrations start coming in. So it says parts of the mushroom. It says a gill mushroom is described in full here. Compare details on the anatomy of other groups. Mushrooms will be found in the text, such as polypores and things like that, I suppose they're talking about. For example, the gills in these fungi perform the same function as the tubes in boletes and polypores, the production of spores. Interesting. So, the cap. The cap is the most conspicuous part of a mushroom. Okay, the cap is the most conspicuous part of a mushroom, and its shape can be important to identifying different genera. At first, many mushroom caps are nearly round, conical, bell-shaped, or convex. As most species mature, the cap becomes broadly convex or flat, or develops uplifted edges. Some mushrooms are vase-shaped, or become vase-shaped with age. The center of the cap may be knobbed, either broadly or sharply, or it may be sunken. The margin of the cap may be enrolled, down-curved, straight, or upturned and torn, wavy, hairy, or smooth. Some species have hanging veil remnants along the margin. The margin would be the very edge of the cap. Others are radically lined, deeply furrowed, wrinkled, or pitted. The caps may be dry, moist, sticky, or slimy, when they are fresh. However, a sticky or slimy cap may appear dry when it is old or dried up. Put a drop of water on it to see if it becomes sticky or slimy. The color of a cap that feels or looks moist even often fades as moisture evaporates. In addition to being wet or dry, cap surfaces may be smooth and hairless, powdery, granular, or adorned with radial lines, hairs, scales, or veil remnants. If hair is present, it may be silky, fibrous, or scale-like. And this shows you the different little illustrations of the shapes. And then going to the flesh of the cap lies beneath the surface or the cuticle. It may be thick or thin, soft or tough, white or pigmented. When the flesh of the Lactarius species is cut, it exudes a milky fluid called latex. Mushrooms often have a distinctive odor, especially when they are crushed. Some smell like anise, fruit, cucumbers, green corn, creosote, fish, radishes, garlic, or raw potatoes. Taste can be an important aid in differentiating between similar species. For example, different Russula species may taste mild, acrid, biting, or peppery. To determine the taste of a mushroom, chew a very small piece until the flavor becomes apparent. Then spit it out. Study the deadly poisonous species in advance to avoid testing them. Thanks, book. Gills are plate-like structures that on the underside of the cap. They may radiate out from the stalk and produce the spores. They radiate out from the stalk and produce the spores. They may be attached to the stalk directly at a 90-degree angle, adnate, or obliquely at a 45-degree angle, adnext. Biting fly on me there. Sorry. Adnext. Where you at? There you are. Some are notched just short of where they are attached to the stalk. In many mushrooms, the gills run down the stalk slightly or deeply. In some, the gills pull away from the cap as it expands. These are referred to as seceding gills. In a few genera, the gills are free or not attached to the stalk. The easiest way to observe the gill attachment is to slice the mushroom in half longitudinally. All right. Gills are variously spaced. Some are crowded together so tightly that one cannot see any space between them. Others can be close. Hold on a second. Bingo, get up here. Sorry, gotta babysit my dog while I'm doing this. Okay. Cannot see any space between them. Others are widely separated, distant. Most gills have thin edges and may be minutely fringed, toothed, or colored differently from the rest of the gills. Most gill mushrooms have a stalk, usually located in the center of the cap. Some are off-center or attached at one. All right, cool. Just totally skips there. At one side, lateral. And then it shows illustrations of the gill spacing. And then microscopic gill tissue where the spores are made. And it shows you like the differences: interwoven, parallel, divergent. Yeah, so I recommend buying one of these books or finding it online or however you can. But I would definitely recommend using this I've used it, I've eaten and found many different mushrooms on my own, and used this book, and it's not let me down yet. So let me continue reading. We've got, let's see, a few more pages, but there's not a lot of words on them. So let's see. Yeah, let's see. Carry on. Onward. And in the few cases where the stalk is absent or very small and it's tube-like, stub-like, stub-like, the mushrooms usually grow on wood and are thus elevated sufficiently for spore dispersal. Stalks have various shapes. Some are even or the same width from the top to the bottom. Others are club-shaped, flattened, or spindle-shaped. The base may be bulbous, abruptly bulbous, or tapering to a root-like growth base, or have runners, rhizomorphs, growing out of it. The stalk surface may be smooth, dotted, lined, netted, scaly, powdery, or hairy. In some species, the stalk snaps apart when bent. A few are rubbery. Stalks may be hollow, solid, or filled with cottony tissue. Many species have a ring, a skirt, or band-like tissue, or a zone of fibers on the stalk left by the partial veil as the mushroom expands. Others have a cup, also called a vulva, or bits of tissue about the stalk base, or bits of tissue about the stalk base. These are remnants of a universal veil. Some mushrooms have veils, membranes that cover and protect either the entire immature mushroom or the immature gills. As the mushroom enlarges, the membrane ruptures, usually leaving traces on the cap or stalk. If the membrane covers the entire mushroom, it is known as a universal veil. Lost my place. I'm sorry. If the membrane known as a universal veil. On rupturing, it may leave patches on the cap or a sac-like cup, patches or bands of tissue at the stalk base. A membrane that encloses immature gills on the expanded cap is called a partial veil. When the cap expands, the partial veil breaks up and leaves remnants along the cap margin or on the stalk. The remnants often appear as a ring or skirt around the stalk. Usually the ring left by a partial veil is single, but in some species it is two-layered. In a few species, the rings can be loosened and moved. Classification of mushrooms is the next little section here. We're going for about 18 minutes here, so I'll try to wrap this up and then I'll probably start a new video on the next section. Within the plant kingdom, fungi constitute the division Eumycota, Eumycota, which is split into subdivisions, 3 of which are included in this guide. Each subdivision is divided into classes, each class into orders, each order into families. For example, the common commercial mushroom, Agaricus bisporus, belongs to the subdivision Basidiomycotina. Fuck me. Which contains all fungi that reproduce that produce spores on microscopic structures known as the Basidia, to the class Hymenomycetes, a group also what the fuck? Okay. Sorry, I'm having a moment here. This motherfucker. Okay. Okay, Hymenomycetes, a grouping also based on microscopic spore characteristics, the location of the spores, and the way they are dispersed, to the order Agaricales, which contains all guild mushrooms and boletes, to the family Agaricae, which includes Agaricus species and their close relatives. Families are further divided into genera, singular genus, and the genera into species. When people speak of a particular mushroom, they usually have in mind a species, such as chanterelle, Chanterellus caiherius. Some species have named some species have named varieties. For example, the cleft-foot Amanita, Amanita brunescensis, has a white variety, which is called Amanita brucensis, variation pallida. In some cases, the varieties are so unlike one another that some experts consider them to be a different species or members of a species complex. One of the problems facing the beginning mushroom hunter is the large number of names that have been given to the name that have been given to the same species, and the frequent changes to the names. Yeah, that's what we run into around here. We run into people like my previous video. I had chicken of the woods, which is Latoporus sulpharis, and I call it chicken of the woods because, you know, I'm just an idiot that learned this stuff, you know, so I need to address it properly when teaching it, so I'm not telling you, oh, it's chicken of the woods, and then some other dummy called something else chicken of the woods, and that's not it, and then you poison yourself and die. Like, I can't have that fucking happen. So that's why we're doing this. That's why we're reading this book. That's why we're getting involved educationally with this shit. So onward again. Yeah, one of the problems facing the beginning mushroom hunter is a large number of names that have been given to the same species, and frequent changes in the names. Until recently, mushrooms were classified according to their appearance in the field, and similar species were classified in the same families or genera. In the last few decades, mycologists working with microscopes have found that some of the mushrooms that resemble one another in the field are quite dissimilar microscopically. Other mycologists are experimenting with chemical analysis, and their findings have also altered the classification of mushrooms. Although some people still favor groupings based solely on field characteristics, the new tendency is to group mushrooms together on the basis of microscopic and chemical properties as well. In the end, this will give us a fuller understanding of the natural relationships that exist between groups of mushrooms. All right, I was going to pause there. Yeah. please tune in for the next video. Please like and subscribe, because that, well, I don't know, boosts fucking shit on YouTube, you know. I'm supposed to say these things. It boosts algorithms and shit. But I'm here to teach you guys shit about mushrooms. So please tune into the next episode, and I will finish reading this book, or the intro to this book, and then I will teach you how to use it. So thank you, and please join the next video.